Good afternoon. Welcome to Community and Technology, where we connect the global community with news, information, and resources that we hope will help improve your life. I'm Stu Reed. Here's my co-host, Dave Bernstein. Hey, Dave.
Hello. Who's our guest this week?
We have a very special guest, Mr. Jason Taper. He is a legal fellow from STOP. STOP is the Surveillance Technology Oversight Project. And Jason is a legal fellow with STOP through the Justice Catalyst Fellowship. Jason's a graduate of NYU School of Law and the University of Texas at Austin. Jason, welcome to Community and Technology.
Thank you for having me.
Okay,
Before we bring him on, let's get a little bit of good news on the air first, and then I've got some things to say that'll introduce Jason's issues.
go for it, Dave.
Okay. Good news. Yes, there is some, despite what you may be hearing from Washington and Minnesota and so on. Three different major advantages on glioblastoma, one of the most common brain cancers, that has generally been considered untreatable at an advanced stage. Well, they now have a DNA vaccine that kicks up your immune system, seems to be safe, and in advanced testing, doubles life expectancy.
Wow, doubles. That's a significant increase, Dave.
There's also a oncolytic virus, which has been genetically modified to selectively infect and destroy cancer cells. That's coming out of Harvard, is doing well. And the one that's most amazing is still just in mice. But in 83%, the tumor was completely eradicated with gene therapy.
What kind of tumor, Dave?
I'm sorry?
What kind of tumors are we talking about? Cancerous tumors?
These three are for brain tumors, glioblastoma.
Okay.
We had pancreatic cancer, is the good news, a show or two back, and there's more and more. Next, something that's going to be practical for a lot of people. Medicare until now has not covered Ozempic and the other GLP-1s for weight loss. You had to have diabetes or something like that to get it covered. That has just changed. If you are heavy, if you are very heavy, or if you're fairly heavy and have prediabetes or hypertension, they are now covering the weight loss, Ozempic, and I forget the name of the other one that's on the market. There's a $50 a month copay, which is a lot for some people, but I lost almost 100 pounds, and it really makes a difference.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
a breakthrough, Dave, that the Medicare is covering that. That's big.
It's not for everyone. It's only for heavy people. And they're only doing it for 2 years as a trial, but that's good.
Hmm.
Uh, Last is a warning. There has now been the Mac operating system kernel cracked using one of the new AI tools, Mythos. Uh, Took 5 days for the AI agent to do it, but it's done it. Anthropic's Claude Mythos and OpenAI's latest ChatGPT are devastating.
What does that
Internet
mean, though, Dave?
disorder.
You say it cracked the kernel for Mac. What does that mean? Break that down for
It
us.
means they can take over your machine.
Duh. Okay. Hmm.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the new AIs are that good. They are literally finding hundreds of security problems in major software in the last month.
Mm.
And the other thing is the same software that's really good at finding cracks into your computer can also crack things like the tax code and come up with loopholes so that people who can afford to use this software won't have to pay any taxes at all.
Yay! That sounds like a positive.
Not really. Remember, we got AI probably going to kill a lot of jobs and a whole lot of people who are going to need help. And if there are no taxes being paid to cover that, well, that's a
Yeah,
problem. But
Dave,
AI,
but from where I said, poor and low and moderate income people pay way more taxes on a pro rata basis than the wealthy do. So, if low income, moderate wage people can find a way to save money on taxes, I say more power to them.
I bet the people with a big tax and a lot of money and fancy lawyers and accountants to use these tools are going to get most of the benefit.
Hmm. As usual.
Um, it's also finding all kinds of problems and loopholes in the law. Let me ask our guest, have you had a case or been involved in a case or studied a case where you looked long and hard trying to find some obscure regulation or law that would win the case for you?
Of course.
Well, the latest versions, and there's a big difference between what we have now and what we had 4 months ago, of the main AIs are going to do a fabulous job finding obscure bits of law and regulation. This
Hmm.
is coming from Bruce Schneider of Harvard, who's probably the world's leading expert on security. Everybody in AI knew that we were cracking security of computer software. And he points out that the same kind of crack can go to the tax code, can go to regulation, can go to the law itself, and it will. That's one of the problems that AI is going to bring us alongside some incredible benefits. But AI, I mean, I've spent the last 3 years learning about AI because it is doing incredible things. There are 11 new drugs that are now in human testing and dozens more coming in the next year. It can do a better job reading mammographies and chest x-rays and cardiograms than expert radiologists. Not much better, but it's finding some stuff. Okay, that's all happening. But what's coming next is maybe even more frightening. The giants, we're talking Apple and Microsoft and Facebook and Google, intend to be tracking you in a way that's almost unimaginable. Just last year, they all intend to track you 16 to 24 hours a day. 24 hours a day if you keep your Fitbit on your wrist to track how well you're sleeping. That is all going to go up to the cloud owned by these giants. They all have plans, and I can give you the particulars if we have time later, to take every email you have, everything you ask of ChatGPT, every medical question, and your health record, which they're now urging you to upload to Google or Microsoft, OpenAI, Anthropic, and use that to target you for everything from political ads to we don't know what. 24 hours a day. The latest thing from Google, instead of the AI, not merely tracks and replaces your mouse if you wanted to, and you can give your voice commands anytime you want, saying, load my email from Jason Taper, and it will work. Google's now is also getting the context of where your mice has been. In other words, it looks at your screen and figures out everything on your screen that might help you find the email for Jason Taper. If it if you mispronounced it or whatever, may look for the spelling and track not just what you do, not just what you say, but everything that applies on your screen. Jason, your turn to explain why this is going to be a problem.
I would say gladly, but I don't know if I can be glad about the problem. Um, the way Stop thinks about these things, we tend to focus on a few particular buckets of particularly harmful consequences. Um, the criminal law is the source of a lot of these. For example, as we've seen after the Dobbs decision, red states in which abortion is criminalized have been seeking this sort of health information across the country. Um, and the AI that is, like you said, scraping every possible little piece of information can lead these abortion criminalizing states to you. Um, More broadly, though, when we have a government that can kind of buy its way around constitutional protections with loopholes, like you were saying, it makes it so much harder for folks to live their lives with any semblance of privacy when they know that these companies will hand over these 24/7 sets of information to any government agency that asks. So, of course, there are always private actors that are less than savory as well. But I think for me, the thing that worries me the most is when these, like you said, all encompassing data sets end up in the hands of people with the full power of the state behind them.
Yeah, that that
And
that
what do
that
you
uh,
recommend?
Well, there are actually a few bills in the New York State legislature which might help with this. There is one on health data specifically, since you've led with a little bit of kind of health talk. The New York Health Information Privacy Act would essentially prevent New Yorkers' electronic health data from being sold to out-of-staters, and it would require consent for that particularly sensitive health data. This is especially important when, you have partnerships between things like the Oura Ring doing sleep tracking, like you said, and Palantir, who famously works with ICE. Um, Another bill at the state level that could help is the broader constitutional right to privacy bill. What this would do is essentially repair the right to privacy that Dobbs decision struck through the heart of, and essentially say that all of this information that is aggregated upon us is ours, first and foremost. Um, there's so much that it can reveal, and I think the ability to repair our Fourth Amendment in particular, but our right to privacy more broadly, I think is the first step in reining in these technologies' ability to wreak havoc.
mhm. I just want to
Now,
get Jason's take, Dave, if I can jump in here.
thank you.
You talk about some of the state legislation that's pending, and that's important stuff. But here in New York City, there's also stuff going on. I know that your organization, Stop, has put together some sort of roadmap for the new mayor Mandami around privacy and use of personal data. Can you tell us about that?
Absolutely. Um, of course, the mayor has control over the agencies of the city, including the NYPD, and can direct them to use or not use any particular technology on his own. And we believe that there are, for example, certain technologies that categorically should not be used by the NYPD. For example, um, facial recognition and automatic license plate readers, which have extremely high, not just error rates sometimes, but again, ability to be shared with ICE, ability to track people 24/7 with their location in the case of license plate readers. Um, the first step of that plan, which is available on our website, stopspying.org, if I can just sneak that little plug in there.
Absolutely, please.
Um, to me, the first step is these bright line rules that say you that say our city should not be using certain forms of technology against New Yorkers.
Hmm. Okay, and
Let-
there you're talking about license plate readers and facial recognition technology as two specific technologies.
Mhm.
And let me make it concrete with what is happening already in Troy, New York. The
Hmm.
license plate cameras tore the town apart. This is a headline from the newspaper up there, and led to a state of emergency. The
David,
residents
let me
insisted,
just interject. As I read this story, it didn't lead to a state of emergency, but the mayor had no city council or public input on the use of these cameras, and he declared a state of emergency in order to force these cameras into effect, if I read it right.
yep. So the mayor, on urging from the police department, wants the flock cameras to constantly be on the major roads in Troy, looking at every license plate all the time, so that when the police want to find somebody who might be an immigrant, might have, well, they've already got a nasty case where somebody who emailed the neighbors and called for the devices to be taken off. The mayor supported the camera. The Democratic City Council tried to hold the funding for him, but Mayor Carmelo Mantello declared an emergency to keep it going. I will not put our city in jeopardy and take these cameras away. And we know that we're in a country where if you criticize the police, criticize ICE, they may very well be coming after you and putting you in jail.
Hmm.
That's what this bill that our guest is talking about wants to stop. It's not a theoretical problem. It's happening in New York State already and 6,000 other communities across the country,
Yeah, let me just
according to
interject, Dave.
Florida.
You said the name is called Flock Safety. FLOCK Safety is the name of the camera surveillance company.
Yep,
And there are 6,000 communities across the country.
yep. And it's not New York, and I hope it never is.
Well, it's in New York State. Troy's in New York State. It's just not in New York City yet.
Yep,
Hmm.
sorry. There's
Yeah,
a whole lot of New York State that's further, not New York City. We
yeah,
sometimes forget that.
yeah. Okay, let's
Jason,
get, yeah.
come in with details here.
Well, so Flock in particular has contracts for sharing information from those license plate readers predominantly with ICE. And they're not entirely because of that, but in large part because of that, have been movements in cities and states nationwide to deflock the cities, to get rid of such license plate readers. Because, like you said, not only do we never know the full extent of the sharing of the information, you never know which, new Doge-like agency the information gets leaked to or, improperly shared to. But that information is extremely, extremely personal. A license plate reader can say if you drove to an abortion clinic, if you drove to a house of worship, if you drove to a protest. I mean, all of these things that are constitutionally protected and that privacy itself protects. Um, these license plate readers can tell pretty much everything about you just based on your location. And as you say, it is extremely dangerous to think of the possible use for retaliating against people who simply disagree with whoever's in power. Um, it's a lot of information. It really is.
ICE has something like $30 billion a year in the budget these days. That's enough to put cameras in front of every immigration lawyer in the country and see who drives to see that immigration lawyer. And I wouldn't be surprised if they're trying to get the cities to work with them and do just that.
Yeah, unfortunately, there is quite a lot of cooperation across the country, and not necessarily just by the cities. Sometimes it is through Flock itself, with the local government, sometimes unaware.
Mm. Wow. Well, Dave,
Yeah.
we're just about at the break point here. There's a lot more to talk about. I know when we come back, one of the things, Jason, I want you to talk about is the NYPD drone program. Speaking of privacy and New York citizens, a lot going on there. So you're listening to Community and Technology on WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem. Stu Reed, Dave Burstein, special guest Jason Taper. We'll be right back after a brief musical break.
So the music a bubble, and I not looking for trouble. Yet they come. Hotter, hotter reggae music, hotter, hotter reggae music, hotter, hotter reggae music, hotter. Time to time they've been watching I, they must spy with them bad eye. Come and red eye blues them, yeah, red eye blues. Tip top by informers, them a watch you come out and come in. Come and red eye blues them. Time would be right. Run, come, gate, crash, I party. Come a red eye blues then. And them a come red eye blues. Red blues dance. Red eye blues. Come a red eye blues then. A murder. Red eye blues. He got the boy, I name them call. I'm on a boogie and a boogie and come a red eye blues then. And them a come. Rasta cry. Rasta cry black. Good. A dreadlocks cry black. Come a rain, come a rain, come a rain, come a rain. Come a red eye blues dance. And them a come. Red eye blues. Red blues dance. Red eye blues. Red blues dance. Red eye blues. Come a kick in I speaker. Come a mash up I Twitter. Come a lick out I window. Come a grab up me eye shanks. Come a rough up the people. Come a scratch up my music. Come a smash I turntable. Have to give them some bitch right. Come a smash I turntable. Come a mash up, 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 mash up. Come a drive up your meat van. Come a mash up, mash up, mash up, mash up, mash up, mash up, mash up. Ah, come a, 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 right. Come a red eye blues dance. Red eye blues. Come a red eye blues dance. Red eye blues.
Okay, we're back. Community Technology, Dave and Stu Reed, special guest Jason Taper from the Surveillance Technology Oversight Project. Jason, before we took a break, we were talking a little bit about New York City and what's going on here. You have a roadmap that you've laid out for Mayor Mondami of things you want to see, and I also wanted you to talk a little bit about further about that as well as about the NYPD drone program. What is that
Absolutely.
about?
Absolutely. Well, I'll start with the drones, and then I'll come back to all of the many other things that our mayor could do to make our city better for our rights. But with regard to drones, perhaps folks have noticed, but NYPD drone use has skyrocketed.
Hmm.
Um, Stop has a report out, again on our website, stopspying.org, called Don't Look Up, that shows that NYPD drone use skyrocketed over 3,000% from 2002 to 2004. Initially, the drones were supposed to just be for emergencies, but They are the equivalent of driving around now. The drones are used, not just in emergencies, but for everyday policing. Um, and of course, from above, the NYPD can see so much private information. Again, like I was saying with the location information before with the license plate readers, there is so much private information, so many things that even if you aren't breaking the law, you don't want to share. And drones staring at you from above infringe on that. And unfortunately, there's really no oversight of this. The NYPD has to publish impact and use policies for its technology, but there's very little oversight to how they actually do implement these drones. And certainly, Commissioner Tish of the NYPD hasn't outlined any limiting principles.
Mhm. So
Um,
the city council is not involved in regulating that at all, Jason?
there have been some ideas and some bills kicking around to regulate the drones. Um, but again, Mayor Mamdani can direct the NYPD himself. And so, in theory, it shouldn't even need the city council. But
Mhm.
they could step in, it's true.
So is this something, have you guys, when I say you guys, has stopped, put out a position paper or a set of recommendations to the mayor around the drone program?
We have, and it's pretty simple. Don't use them
Mm, altogether.
altogether because, I mean, frankly, there are so many better uses of our taxpayer money than these drones that intimidate and surveil people. Um, I really haven't seen any concrete evidence that they make us any safer.
Hmm.
And, these things aren't free.
Hmm. Interesting. So now, some of the data that NYPD is collecting, I know during the break you made a reference to the gang database. What's that all about, Jason?
Yeah, the gang database, or as I like to call it, the so-called gang database, is a collection of essentially assumptions made by NYPD officers that certain people are gang members. Now, I say it's a so-called gang database because 99% of the individuals in it are Black and Latino. And as we know, that is not the only kind of person that is in a gang.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, Generally speaking, it's youth, it's minors, and folks under 25 make up the vast majority of the database. And once someone is on this database, that designation is on every officer's phone, and it heightens every interaction that they might
Hmm.
have with police, right? Because you pull someone over as a officer, your information says that they're a gang member, you're twitchy.
Right.
And just the smallest, most inconsequential things can get you on this database. Um, Coordinating colors, like truly, there was a report by a CUNY law professor, Babe Howell. She found every color of the rainbow was considered a gang color by the NYPD in their gang database. There's no requirement for anyone to break any law to be
Mm,
considered a quote unquote gang member. It can be as simple as wishing the wrong person happy birthday or living in the wrong NYCHA housing. So,
mm.
so this is combined with all of these surveillance technologies that we've been talking about, and that's who this is targeted at is Black and Latino youth. Um, so the
So it's
next one,
a further criminalization of Black folks and Black culture and using very sophisticated tools to do that.
exactly.
Mm. So what are where does this database sit? Is there and how is it used? How is it deployed? Who has access to it?
So this database is incorporated within what NYPD calls the domain awareness system. That's what I mean when I say it's on every officer's phone. Everyone has that, they all have access to it. Where does it sit and who manages it? I can't quite remember right now, but I do know that it's accessible to, and any officer can gang designate someone.
Really?
One
Just
particular
just arbitrarily, Jason? They could just like they
so
meet you on the street, don't like the way you look, and they put you in that database?
okay, so technically no, but they have what is called self-identification, where it's basically ventriloquism, where an NYPD officer will say this person self-identified as a gang member, and that's enough. But these again, self-identification is as simple as as happy birthday. Um, that's a
Or
real example,
playing
by the way. That was
basketball.
on someone's Facebook wall.
Uh, I used to, when I was younger, I used to play basketball a few blocks from my house in the projects. And I suspect some of the teenagers I was playing basketball with were in that database. And if they saw me playing basketball with three people in their database, they might very well have put me in it.
That's exactly how they do. It's just guilt by association. There's really no there. And that's why again I call it a so-called gang database because it's just kind of a guilt by association machine. And one place that it's particularly used is social media. NYPD has officers that make fake accounts. This is well documented. Um, and they will use these accounts. They'll friend, again, kids and use this to identify them as gang members and mark them for more surveillance. Um, which is another reason why NYPD social media spying is yet another demand of stops to Mayor Mamdani because it's a major way that folks get in the crosshairs of these dangerous gang narratives.
Mhm. And as you said earlier, Jason, it sounds as though they are targeting certain demographics, black, brown youth in particular.
Unfortunately, it's true. Now, there have been some slight reforms to how NYPD designates folks as gang members, but the initial one just included, for example, entire NYCHA housing projects. Anyone who
Mm.
lived there is in a quote unquote gang location. And again, if you have a database where association puts you in it, and the folks in it are black and Latino, who do you think is going to be continue to get caught up
Wow.
in it?
Wow. This sounds like really 21st century stop and frisk. Um,
Exactly. And
technically.
unfortunately laundered through the veneer of technology, right? Oh, it's in the database. Oh, it's technology. It
Mm.
must be scientifically proven. But it's the same old assumptions, just digitized.
Hmm. Hmm. Wow. Okay, so are there any other issues that our folks need to know about, in particular, New York City related, that Stop is fighting for, advocating for, Jason?
So beyond reining in NYPD spying, Stop also is passionate about making sure that our city does not collaborate with ICE or any other federal agency that seeks to deport our neighbors. The mayor's office can proactively block data sharing, which is a big one. And by a big one, I mean a big way that ICE gets its targets. Um, I would say living up to our sanctuary designation is the other big priority of Stop right now, or at least of my work at Stop right now.
Hmm. And what is that? Tell share with our listeners and viewers what that sanctuary designation means and what you're doing to see that we do live up to it.
Absolutely. So, a sanctuary designation prevents our state and local tax dollars from being used to help ICE, essentially. It prevents, or it's supposed to prevent, coordination between our local law enforcement, state law enforcement, and ICE slash other civil immigration enforcement. However, it's a very thin firewall. There are things called fusion centers and joint task forces in which state and local law enforcement share information with the criminal side of immigration enforcement. And then there's no firewall to prevent them from going and sharing it with the civil side. In other words, the thing that it is supposed to prevent has an extremely large loophole in it. Um, Stop is advocating for a bill in the city council, I believe, to strengthen that designation, that sanctuary policy, by allowing a private right of action, allowing private citizens to sue any officer who violates the law. Lawyers like to say there aren't any rights without remedies, and it there needs to be a so what to the sanctuary law. Um, that city council bill is our biggest push there. But again, mayor's got a lot of power. It would be great if he used it here.
Mm. Dave, you have some follow-on questions for Jason?
I think we've said a lot on this already. So I'm
Mhm.
going to say everybody listening to this knows what's up. Tell me, Jason, how you see AI, because that's in the middle of a lot of things affecting the issues that you're dealing with.
It sure is. I see AI as a tool, of course, but I worry about how it's used and specifically who it's used against. For example, um, it's used to screen people out for employment sometimes. AI will be the first pass reading resumes, and AI can reproduce discrimination because it's based on real world human data. There's a state bill called the New York Artificial Intelligence Act, which would essentially shift the burden to AI, I guess, makers, proprietors, company, whatever you call it, um, to prove that their proprietary AI code that they won't share with anyone isn't discriminatory, excuse me. Um,
Mhm.
and so I think the potential for AI to discriminate is one of my biggest worries with it, as well as the power to just kind of ramp up the ability of any existing powerful agency to do more of the thing we don't want it to do, whatever that may be.
And we talked before about your legislation says you need to get permission. But I bet, well, we got three people on this show. At least one of the three, probably two of the three, maybe all three, in a couple of years are going to give that permission. Why? Because the stuff is going to be so valuable, make everything in your life so much easier, from figuring out who doesn't talk to who when you're setting up a dinner party, or finding an email, or coming up with what you said 6 months ago. Well, it's going to turn out that all this information is very, very handy. When we're talking about health records, they're now routinely asking you to upload your entire medical history, uh, which is sitting there in electronic form, for example, anybody who goes to Mount Sinai Hospital, and upload it to ChatGPT or Microsoft or Google, those are the ones who have it now, they will use that history for you very effectively. It's already working surprisingly well, and in 2 years, it's going to work really well. Most of us are going to have our DNA tested within the next 5 years if we haven't done it already. As it comes down to $50 or $100, everybody's going to want to know. And it turns out the easiest way to get it, or what good interpretation of that is throw it at an AI. So what's going to happen is that there's going to be this thing that buried in the back of it basically says, you have this is my opt-in, and it's going to be buried in the six page and an 8 page thing that's unreadable, even if you
Terms
are a
and
lawyer.
conditions,
Yeah.
huh?
Yeah. So Dave, what you're saying is there are going to be so many valuable uses medically and otherwise of AI that you're going to just kind of opt into them using your data without reading the 28 pages of fine print that have to do with what they can do with it and how vulnerable you may be to other folks sharing and using your data.
Well, I'm sensitive on a lot of this stuff, but Chat Claude does a so much better job finding things in my email that I wanted to attach my Gmail to Claude. I don't have interesting secrets, but it's something that I wouldn't have done 2 years ago, but it's working really, really well. And I gave in on that. And Steve Rosenbaum, who was on the show, was surprised that I did it. But I think almost everybody is going to give their data to the AIs, which means, well, I don't know what it means. Jason, what is it going to mean if everybody opts in? Because they'd be
Right.
giving up too much if they didn't.
You bring up a good point on how, with a lot of this technological policy, it's so hard to opt out, right? It's hard to opt out from modern society and technology and smartphones, etc. Um, to me, the important principle is limiting the use. In other words, only allowing the use of the information that you consented to. Only consenting for a limited purpose, essentially, is going to be really essential because, like you said, buried in terms and conditions, oftentimes there are clauses that say things like, we can use this however we want. And I think that's not sustainable. I think I guess you could call it siloing off, but just the protection of data and limiting the consent to the particular purpose are going to be extremely helpful. Now, there are other things such as, mandated deletion of data for the AI companies after a certain period of time, or data minimization frameworks where folks, and by folks I again mean AI, collect the minimum necessary amount of information
You
because
just
of
say that AI is a folk, like a person is a folk. It starts feeling like it. It that in some of the things are
if it
that
walks
good,
like a duck, right?
and it may just be imitating us. It may not be conscious or sentient. Nobody knows what it means, and nobody really knows how to make that judgment. But Stu, I've sent you a few things in the last 3 days that we're promoting the event that we're going to have on Thursday, and some of the other stuff. Did that look like a human being wrote it? What I
Yeah,
sent
so
you?
it did. It absolutely did. I said, "Oh, Dave's really going to work here. Put his thinking cap on." Absolutely sounded like you, Dave.
Well, Stu, in fact, signed off on a piece that was entirely written by Claude Anthropic's AI piece. That's going to be his president's message to it for the newsletter of the Internet Society of New York.
I did have one small edit, Dave.
Yeah, did have one small edit,
Mhm.
and I'll tell you there's still mistakes happening, and I'm reporting some of them, and some of them can be pretty serious. But it was so good that you were comfortable putting your name on something they wrote,
Yeah.
just as you might have put your name on something a speechwriter wrote for you.
Absolutely. But Dave, I'm sure that you put some input or at least directed Claude to look at certain databases that help make that statement as authentic as it came out.
All I did is I took your official description of the program. Well, no, on that one, I did make some suggestions of the topics.
Okay. hmm
Yeah, on that one. But a friend of mine uh, is a very prominent law professor. Our guest would recognize her name. So you met her when we went to the event for Ellie Nome.
Okay.
Yeah. Uh, and she said, well, if it's going to go to court, I'm going to look at it pretty closely. Because there's been numerous cases where the AIs are making up cases and getting caught.
Mhm.
But if it's something else, like just a review of something, I let it go through.
Wow.
And
Okay.
that was a law professor
Mhm.
who I
Okay.
guess would recognize the name.
Yeah. So, I mean, that just speaks to the power and the ubiquity of AI, and it's just going to be more. But we're about out of time. I want to thank our guest, Jason Taper, legal fellow with the Stop Surveillance Technology Oversight Project. Jason, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Very quick kicker. Very quick kicker. In
Okay.
California, there is a bill that I believe is getting approved by the committee in the state assembly, still has to go to the floor and to the state senate, that blocks publishers from killing an online game unless they refund the money people paid for their access to the game. And that if after 10 years they want to shut down the game, well, give the people back their money. Or what Vince Cerf suggested a while back, if you don't support your product, whether that be a cell phone or a game, whatever, you have to release the source code so that the community can pick it up and take it over. And that makes lots of sense to me. Maybe we can do something like that here in New York.
Okay, interesting. Okay, thanks for that, Dave. Well, this concludes our show. As I mentioned, we've been speaking with Jason Taper from the Surveillance Technology Oversight Project, who's given us a great summary of what's going on, not just in New York City, New York State, but across the country in terms of surveillance and privacy. Again, thank you, Jason, for joining us.
My pleasure.
Okay, and hope to have you back soon. Okay, this has been Community and Technology on WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem, broadcasting every Wednesday, 5 to 6 p.m. at 90.3 FM, and streaming from our site at WHCR.org. Check us out. You just might learn something. Thanks. Good night. This is Stu Reed, host of Community and Technology, airing every Wednesday from 5 to 6 p.m. For 40 years, WHCR has been the voice of Harlem, providing you with news you can use, emergency preparedness information, and a diverse mix of talk and music shows. Our DJs and radio personalities are all volunteers who come out, rain, sleet, or snow, just like the mail carriers, to serve and keep you connected. I am personally asking you to give the WHCR because there's no other station like it. Telling it like it is, not beholden to any commercial or special interest group. Giving is easy and can be done in 3 ways. Our 40 for 40 campaign is asking each of you to donate $40. That's $1 for each year of WHCR being the voice of Harlem and beyond. Number 1, you can give at whcr.org online. Just click the donation tab. 2, send your check or money order to WHCR FM Radio, 160 Convent Avenue, NAC Building, room 1/513, New York, New York, 10031. Or 3, if you want to donate now but the funds aren't yet available, just use our pledge line to call and make a pledge and pay later. Call 212-650-7526. That's 212-650-7526. Leave your name and number and someone will return your call. Remember to speak slowly and clearly. Thank you in advance for supporting WHCR, the voice of Harlem, and ensuring our voices are heard for the next 40 years and beyond.